Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's demonstration of CobbleStone's contract management software and for attending our virtual conference. My name is Brittany DiCamillo, and I am a Senior Account Manager with CobbleStone. Today, I will be walking you through the various features and functionality of Contract Insight Enterprise Edition, and we will be focusing on the core contract management software components during today's demonstration, but please keep in mind that CobbleStone also offers a variety of additional add-on modules and features that will be covered in more detail during additional sessions throughout the conference. So please join those as well to learn more about our offering and system capabilities. Today's demonstration will be about 45 minutes, and that leaves us 15 minutes at the end for Q&A, so that way we can ensure to answer any questions that might come up during the presentation. So jot those down as we work our way through the system today. And what I'd actually like to do is jump right into my demo system, walk through the various features and functionality, kind of a day in the life of example. So let me go ahead and pull that up on my screen. And when I pull up my demo system, you will notice that I am already logged in. And when I log in, it's going to bring me to my custom homepage or my custom dashboard. And every single user who has access to the system has the ability to configure a custom homepage to contain the specific information that meets their needs. Or system administrators can configure system dashboards and then assign specific users to default their homepage for them. And that way we can ensure we are seeing all of the relevant and most applicable information upon login. And the way that I have this sample dashboard set up is I have a handful of these buttons or tiles here at the top, and then I have a calendar full of my alerts at the bottom. But this is really flexible. You can set this up really any way that you'd like. You can pin buttons. You can also have reports on this dashboard, the calendar view, graphs, charts, external web pages. So like I had mentioned, it's really flexible. And I will show you some examples of more graphical or executive style dashboards in just a moment. But my calendar is going to show me things like my contract key date alerts for an expiration date, an expiration warning date, and a review date that I set up in the system. And it's also going to show me task alerts. And tasks can be generated a few different ways. One, through automated review and approval workflow processes. And then you also have the ability to add an unlimited number of one-off tasks to every single contract that you are working on. So if you need additional reminders to track to-do list items, milestones, deliverables, obligations, you can add those at any time. There's no limit. And of course, you'll see all of these alerts here upon login, but you'll also receive an email message containing that information. And in that email message, there will be some overview information about the contract and the associated alert. And then at the bottom, there would be a link. So you can click on that link, and once you get into the system, it will bypass this homepage altogether and just take you directly to the contract page associated with that alert. So that saves you a couple of clicks. You don't have to come in and then try and search around for it. Additionally, from any page of the system that I'm on, I can easily access this little notification bell on the upper menu bar to see any open items that require my attention or any tasks that I need to take action on. And then as I close them out, they would be removed from that list. So if you see, I click, I have no new alerts, but any new alerts assigned to my account would display there accordingly. I also mentioned that above my calendar, I have a handful of these quick access tiles or buttons. And I like to emphasize these a little bit because I see a lot of our clients will utilize these buttons and have different buttons based on the user who's logged in. So maybe if you have a requester type user logging into the system, they might want to see a button to easily submit a new request for a contract or to view the pending contracts or requests that they've submitted. But if you are more of a approver role, you might want to see a to-do list of all the items that you need to review or approve or whatever the case may be. So you can pick and choose exactly what you see here. And that way it's always giving you the most relevant information to get to other pieces of information or access other areas of the system easily and quickly. On top of these working dashboards that we have, We also provide a graphical dashboard capability. So if you are logging in to the system and you're looking to do high-level data analysis, benchmarking, review KPIs and cycle times, you can utilize CobbleStone's online reports designer to build your own graphical style dashboard. We do give you a handful of graphical style dashboards out of the box already created by CobbleStone. So you could utilize these as is, and then you can also use that online report designer to tweak these to better meet your needs or just build your own. And this sample that I've pulled up here is one that does come out of the box. That is really configurable, again, can be assigned based on the user who's logged in. And we will go through some searching and reporting capabilities in a little bit more depth toward the end of the demonstration, but I just wanted to point out kind of what the capabilities were upon the login. But what I'd like to do next is just walk through how easy it is to add or initiate a new contract in the system. And there are a couple of different ways that I can initiate or add a new contract. Of course, I could go up to this contracts option on the main menu bar and select add contract record. You can also pin that to a button just to make it really easy for your users upon login. And then you'll notice over here on the left-hand toolbar, we have a drag and drop option. And this allows you to drag in a file. When you do that, it's actually going to utilize CobbleStone's Wisdom artificial intelligence tool to read that file. When it reads the file, it's going to run a variety of smart algorithms on top of the file, look for data to extract into your fields. And then what's also nice is it does a clause comparison. So it will read through the language, compare all of the clauses to clauses that you may be storing in your clause library. So that way you can see what might be standard based on your, pre-approved language and what things might need to be, potentially redlined or adjusted because it's coming from third-party paper and it's not your preferred language. So we will actually show you an example of that in just a few moments. And I know that we do have some dedicated sessions about Wisdom artificial intelligence later on during the conference. So please keep an eye out for those and feel free to attend if you did want more information. But the first method that I'm going to utilize is just by going up to contracts and selecting add contract record. And the first thing it has me do is it prompts me to select the contract type. And this would be a list of your specific contract types. So if you see things in my list that do not apply, you can ignore them. This is fully configurable to meet your needs. And the reason it has me select my contract type first is because I can have an unlimited number of user-defined fields in the system for tracking, reporting, and searching purposes. And then I can assign different fields to different types of contracts. So on, a consulting agreement, you might want to see a contract amount field, maybe even a budget amount field. But on a CDA or an NDA, you don't really need those two fields because they don't apply. So you can pick and choose. It's just going to help eliminate irrelevant information when you fill out these forms. And what I'd like to do today is show you how to add a sample consulting agreement. And we can really pretend this is any type in my demo system. But the reason that I like to use consulting is because I have my out-of-the-box fields assigned here. So this is the form that's going to come with the system. But then you have the ability to fully configure this to meet your needs. So if you want to, you can easily change the name of any one of these. You can hide or remove some fields that just don't work for you. And you can add as many additional fields as needed. And all of that can be done right through the user interface by a system administrator. So it's pretty easy to do. And your user would just go through and populate some of this information associated with the contract. Counterparty, this might be a list of the organizations that you were doing business with. Employee, this might be the contract owner, manager, requester. Location is nice. If you are managing multiple locations internally, you could list those out there. You'll then see I have a dates section. This dates section is eventually going to generate alerts and notifications. So you can outline your effective date and expiration date. On this expiration date that you enter, you will receive a calendar and an email notification letting you know that the contract is expired. So that will generate an alert. And the system is also going to generate 2 additional automated alerts out of the box based off of this notify days field and the annual review date field. The notify dates field is just going to determine how many days prior to expiration that you would like an early warning notice. In this system, I have it defaulted to 60, so 60 days prior to expiration, I will get that calendar and email notification letting me know that my contract is expiring in 60 days. But you could have your system default to any number you choose or blank, so you could type a different number each time. That's really up to you. And sometimes I see users will change the name of this annual review date field. They might call it renewal date, termination date, review date. It doesn't really matter what you call it though. It's just going to alert you on the day that you enter. I also like to mention that you have the ability to add an unlimited number of user-defined fields. And I know I said that already, but I think it's important to mention it again because those could also be date fields. So if you did need to capture any additional dates outside of what you're seeing here, you could easily add them and then configure the system to generate alerts based on those dates entered. So you're not limited to this by any means whatsoever. Beneath that, I can enter in a contract amount and a budget amount. And then at the very bottom, I have a record info section. And the system is actually going to automatically populate that data for me for full audit trail tracking and security purposes. So I don't have to worry about entering anything in there. Those are actually kind of grayed out and locked. And once I fill out this form, I can go ahead and click Save and Continue. And when I click Save and Continue, it's going to bring me to my contract details page, where we can see all of the information that was entered. And now all of this is fully searchable and reportable. If I scroll down a little bit beneath that data, there is a Files and Attachments section. And this is an area where I can upload an unlimited number of files and attachments of any file type. So Word document draft copies, PDF fully executed documents, email messages, pricing schedules, whatever the case may be. And there are a few different ways that I could get files in. I can do a single file upload, kind of like a traditional browse out to my file explorer. I could import from cloud apps. So currently this is compatible with Google Drive or Microsoft OneDrive. So if you're utilizing either of those cloud apps, you can authenticate into those and upload files accordingly. And then we have a drag and drop box, which would allow us to drag and drop one or multiple files in at a time. And you are able to add file notes and a file category. So if you wanted to categorize your files in a certain way or add notes upon upload, you absolutely could. And like I said, this method for adding a contract is kind of that more traditional original method in the system by going to Contracts, Add Contract Record. But I also mentioned before that we have that Wisdom artificial intelligence tool, and that is going to be located on nearly every page in that left-hand toolbar. So if you receive a copy of a contract on third-party or external paper, or maybe you draft that on your computer or it's already executed and you want to take that and just drag it in to create the record, you absolutely could. You would just open your File Explorer wherever you may be storing that, and I'll go ahead and open mine so you can see what that might look like. And when I do, all you'd have to do is just drag and drop the agreement in. So I'm going to drag in this software agreement that I have here. And when I do, it's going to ask me what type of record I'd like to create with that software agreement that I just dragged over into that left-hand toolbar. And in this case, these buttons can vary based on a couple of things. So one is going to be licensed modules. If you are utilizing or licensing the purchase order and spend management module, sourcing and procurement modules, you would see those options here. But if not, you would not have the ability to utilize those. And then also based on the user's permissions. So if I'm logged in and I don't have permission to add a new employee record or a new vendor record, it wouldn't give me those options. But in this case, I'll just go ahead and select contract. Same concept, it has me select the type first, so I can go ahead and pick any type here for demo purposes. But when I click continue, it's actually going to be a little bit different than the previous method because the system will automatically OCR any image-based PDF or TIFF file that you drag in, making it fully searchable. And then once the system recognizes that it is a searchable document, it's going to read the document page by page and run a variety of smart algorithms over those pages, and that way it can look for data to extract into your fields. Keep in mind, I mentioned this already, but I'll mention it again. We do have more detailed sessions that go through how this works and the variety of algorithms that are available and natural language processing later on during the virtual conference. So if you are interested in learning more, please attend those sessions. But in this case, when it's done running those algorithms on top of the file and reading the file, it's going to give me a preview of that document over here on the left, and then you'll see my fields are over here on the right. And it was able to extract some data. You'll see that we successfully extracted things like the contract title. It recognized the counterparty name and put it there. If I scroll down just a little bit, you'll see effective date was extracted and expiration date, and it was able to recognize a contract amount. So this will save you a little bit of time if you didn't want to necessarily manually type this information in because it was already keyed into a file. Another feature that I really like about this Wisdom tool is it's going to read each document and extract specific clauses from the document, compare those clauses to clauses that you might be storing in your system's clause library. The clause library is an area of the system where you can store an unlimited amount of alternate or pre-approved language. And if I click on that clauses tab at the top, you'll see each clause extracted accordingly. And if I scroll down, it's going to actually give me all of the similar clauses. So if I scroll down to governing law, here's the governing law clause that was suggested in the document. And it's telling me that we have a similar clause in our clause library. And I can actually click on that link and do a side-by-side comparison of the text from the file versus our standard clause stored in the clause library. And that just helps you analyze the differences between the language in the document versus your pre-approved internal language. But once I populate all of the fields and ensure that the data looks okay, I can click Save and Continue, and it would bring me directly to the contract details page. So it leaves us off in the same spot as the first method that we went through on this contract details page. The only difference is the file that we did the drag and drop for would be stored here in the Files and Attachments section. So we would have seen that here. And I will go through this Files and Attachments section in a little bit more detail. But before I do that, I want to point out an area below. And that area that I want to mention is our task and workflow section. And this is where my automated review and approval process is going to initiate from. And I have a pretty simple 4-step process set up for demo purposes, but please keep in mind that this is configurable, so you can determine your own business routing processes based on your internal business routing rules. So you would have the ability to adjust this, of course, but the first step of my sample process has rolled on to my sample user, Sally, letting her know that she needs to prepare this document or prepare this record for review. And I keep this a little bit vague just so I can walk through a couple of different scenarios. But essentially what happens is Sally, she gets a calendar and an email notification. She clicks on the link in the email that is sent to her, and after she logs in, it brings her directly to this page. When she comes in, of course, she can review all of the information that was entered to make sure that that is all accurate. If I scroll down to that Files and Attachments section, she would have the ability to upload all of the necessary files. So if she received a copy of a contract from the third party, or she drafts a document on her computer, or maybe she wanted to upload pricing information, or whatever the case may be, she could easily do so. So I'll put a little note here that just indicates that this is a draft from the third party. I can click Browse. That will bring me out to my File Explorer where I can upload that agreement draft. Once I upload that agreement draft, it will let me know that it has been successfully uploaded, and that might be all that Sally needs to do. But as I mentioned, there are a couple of different scenarios here. So rather than uploading, we do also have a templating tool. So if you have standardized boilerplate style contract documents, you can load them into the system's template library. And the system will provide you with placeholders for all of your fields. So if you know that your counterparty name typically gets typed in paragraph 1, and the effective date goes in paragraph 2, and the contract amount goes in paragraph 7, or whatever the case may be, you can take those placeholders that we give you, and you can paste them throughout the document where you might typically type that information manually. And every time you use that template to draft, the system is going to take the text contained in those fields and merge it onto the file for you. It's very similar to a Microsoft Word mail merge. On top of that, we've also built out the template library to be a little bit more advanced in that it integrates pretty seamlessly with the system's clause library. And like I mentioned before, in the clause library, you can store an unlimited amount of alternate or pre-approved contract language. And then you can actually tell the system when you want that language to be inserted onto your templates. So every now and then a client may come to us and say, hey, CobbleStone, we have 2 different versions of a governing law clause that we typically use. And we use clause A for any location within the United States, and we use clause B for any location in Canada, or whatever the case may be. So we'd say, no problem, set both clauses up in the clause library, and then based on the location that's selected, the system will know to automatically insert clause A or clause B, vice versa. And you have 2 options for generating templates in the system. You can do a one-click generation just by going down to this merged document templates section and clicking that merged standard template button. But we also have an auto-generate option. So if you want the system to automatically generate certain templates based on rules, it can recognize when those rules are met. Maybe every time the contract type is a consulting agreement, it's going to automatically draft your consulting agreement template, or whatever the case may be. In this case, that's how I have mine set up. So you'll see that my template is now generated there. I can click View Manage, open that in Microsoft Word, make additional changes, upload new versions, whatever the case may be. And I'm going to say that in this case, Sally Smith, she has done whatever it is that she needed to do during this first step of her workflow process. And we can go ahead and approve or close out this task. And you'll notice that I have 2 options here, approve or reject. These are the actions that come out of the box with the system, but then you have the ability to add additional actions. So if you wanted additional buttons here, or you wanted things to be worded a little bit differently, you can configure that based on your requirements. But I'm going to go ahead and approve this to roll my process forward. But keep in mind, we could reject. Maybe we just don't have enough information to draft, or we decide that we're not moving forward with this, or whatever the case may be. That could then, route alerts back to others, letting them know it was rejected for whatever reason. So you do have that option to kind of move this down a different path if needed. But when I approve that, it's going to automatically roll on the second step of my sample process, which is a finance review needed assigned to Steve Stevenson. And now Steve is going to get his calendar and email notification. He clicks on the link in the email, and it is going to bring him directly to this page. I do want to point out that my status has automatically updated from initial request to finance review. So I know exactly what step of the process I'm in at all times. If I want to, I could easily do a quick search for all contracts in finance review and see everything that the finance team is working on. And maybe Steve, he takes a look at some of this financial and budgetary information that looks okay. Of course, if needed, he could download this document, make red lines, changes, upload new versions. But if he doesn't anticipate making any changes and he just wants to read through it to review the payment term or the pricing schedule, he could easily click on this little booklet, and that would allow him to preview the file directly in the system and read through it that way. Some other features that I do like to mention during my finance review are below the task and workflow section. One of them is budget and funding line item tracking. So if you are paying for this contract, you can identify where that budget is coming from. And then beneath that, price cost information. So you can identify all of the pricing line items. Both of these areas are optional. So if you choose not to use them, you can hide them in the settings and you do not have to be bothered with seeing them, but they do create a lot of visibility. If you do utilize them, you can easily report on all of the data that you're tracking there. And then beneath that, we have a notes and comments section. And the system allows for an unlimited number of notes and comments for every single record. So if you wanted to jot down quick notes about a review step and let everyone know that the budget was approved, you absolutely can. Or if you wanted to call out certain pieces of language or just jot down anything that you might want to reference later, you absolutely can enter it there. And once I save that note, letting everyone know that the budget was approved, I can complete my finance review step. And of course, if we didn't get the approved budget, we could reject that, enter in notes about why we're rejecting it. That could then roll on additional workflow alerts to somebody else, letting them know that we rejected for whatever the case may be. But in this case, once that is approved, it then rolls on for a legal review. So now Sally, she's going to get that calendar and email notification letting her know that a legal review is needed. She clicks on the link in the email, and then it's going to bring her directly to this page after she logs in. My status has once again automatically updated now from finance to legal review, so I know what step of the process I'm in at all times. Of course, she's already familiar with this information because she was in here when she drafted that, but maybe she needs to propose some additional changes or red lines or whatever the case may be. So she can go down to this Files and Attachments section and click on this link. And when she does that, it's going to open the file in its native format, which is Microsoft Word. We could make our changes, comments, red lines using the Microsoft Word capabilities. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag that over. It opened up on my other monitor here. And like I said, we can use those nice Microsoft Word capabilities, track changes, comments, whatever the case may be. And once we have made our comments, changes, red lines, we can go ahead and upload additional versions back into the system. And I have a few options to do that. Of course, we have all of these uploading tools in the system. So if maybe Sally saves it locally for a handful of days and she wants to then drag in her new version, she can easily take advantage of this drag and drop box. But if she opened it and was making changes in Google or OneDrive and has it saved there, she can use the cloud importing capabilities. So you have a handful of options right here on this record. But I'll just go ahead and drag and drop in version number 2 with my changes that I saved locally. I do also like to mention that we offer one additional option, and that is a Microsoft Word app that is compatible with all PC desktop application Microsoft Word. And what that does, if you download this, is it's going to put a CobbleStone option in your Microsoft Word main menu ribbon. So after you've made your changes, your comments, your red lines, you've done whatever you need to do, you can click on upload and push that back into the system rather than having to save it locally. But what's also nice about this is that it gives you a link to your clause library, and you can have all of your clauses populate in this menu. So if you needed to swap out language, maybe we didn't want to agree to this early termination, we could redline that, find our alternate, we could filter by contract type or any other field here. And then once we find that alternate, we can go ahead and click insert, and that will push that new language right into the file accordingly. Click upload, and that new version would be loaded into the system. So we have some options there to get those new versions in. You'll see that it does track who entered it when, and if I scroll over, we have a version column. But when I did drag in version number 2, I completely forgot to add a note and a category. And I can always go back to do that by clicking on this little red toolbox. And each file has a toolbox associated with it, where you have a variety of file-specific features. One of them is eSign. This is an add-on module. So if you don't purchase this, this would not be an active link in your system, but we will talk about that in just a few more moments. Manage is where I can change my note. Maybe I want to let everyone know to please note my changes to the liability clause or whatever the case may be. I can save that. And then some other features within that toolbox that I like to mention are a document comparison tool. So if Sally uploads version number 2 and she took off track changes in Microsoft Word and I have no idea what's been added or removed from one version to the next, I can easily do a compare. There's also document locking capabilities. And one thing we really haven't touched on yet today are the system permissions. And the system allows you to assign permissions at the user level, or you can create security groups and assign groups of users certain sets of permissions to really determine everything that they're able to do and see within the system. But maybe John typically has access to see this contract, but for whatever reason, we don't want him to see this particular one. Maybe it contains some oddly sensitive information or it's an outdated draft. So you can go ahead and lock that down further. The automated OCR tool is actually going to scan on a crawler your image-based PDFs and TIFFs, making them searchable. It's not necessarily applicable here because this is a Word doc. It's already a text-based file, so that will be indexed and made searchable. We have a variety of different download options based on the file type. A Word doc you can download as Word or convert to PDF. A PDF you could download the original version, the OCR'd version, or you could convert that OCR'd version back to Word. And that way you could propose additional red lines and changes if needed. History for the full audit trail, and then integrating with Google Drive or OneDrive, either of those cloud apps that I had mentioned before. And if I close out of this, you'll then see that my note has been applied and I can complete my legal review step. And I mentioned before, I have a fairly simple 4-step process set up for this demo, but keep in mind, you would have the ability to tailor your own workflow steps based on your business routing rules. The steps that I have configured are very sequential, one after another, but you can also set yours up to be sequential like mine or parallel. So if you wanted multiple reviewers in here reviewing different aspects of the record at the same exact time, you can absolutely set it up that way so everyone's alerted at the same time. But in this case, what's going to happen is my last step will roll on, and that's a notification to Daniel, letting him know that this is ready to be sent for signature. And we have a couple of options. Of course, Daniel can come in, go up to this files and attachment section, download, print, sign, scan, do whatever he needs to do to get this back in. Over on the left-hand toolbar, we also have a one-off email option. And this allows you to email documents directly outside of the system to internal or external parties for review or signature. So if you wanted to email that out, you absolutely could. They would email it back to you. You can drag and drop in that fully executed version pretty easily. I'll just go ahead, access my files that I have here, and drag that over accordingly. But those are your more manual, or I should say traditional signature options. We also offer 3 options for electronic signature, and those would be located within that little red toolbox. So if you get to a point where you're ready to send this out for signature, CobbleStone offers our own proprietary e-signature tool called IntelliSign, and then we also have a DocuSign connector and an Adobe Sign connector. So if you wanted to integrate with your existing DocuSign or Adobe Sign account, you absolutely could. You would essentially send out the document through any of these platforms based on what you're licensing and what you've purchased. The recipients would sign online via the appropriate platform that you initiated it from. And then once it's executed, it would route that file back and store it here. And that way you have it for retention. It can send alerts to key users, letting them know that the file has been imported back successfully and fully executed. And there are additional sessions to go through all of the electronic signature options that are available during the virtual conference. So please feel free to sit in on those if you have additional questions about any of those. But I'm going to go ahead and pull in that fully executed agreement. I'm going to complete that final task for Daniel to send it for signature because he's done that. And when I do, you will notice that the status is now automatically updated to active. And now that we have an active agreement in the system, there might be a couple of things we want to keep an eye out for, like the key dates that will be going out. You also have the ability to organize your files and attachments. So currently, I have uploaded all of these files, the 2 draft versions and the fully executed version, to this root folder over here on the left-hand side. And that's kind of like the master folder for this contract record. But you then have the ability to create additional folders and subfolders to organize your files. You can imagine if you go through heavy negotiations, you could have many, many versions of different draft copies uploaded here. And you might want to just organize them, make it a little bit easier to sort through. So all I have to do is click on this little green plus button, and it will allow me to create those folders and subfolders. So maybe I want to create a folder to house the draft copies. And maybe it's also internal policy that we have to store a W-9 or a certificate of insurance on the record associated with each contract. So you have the ability to create those, and you can upload files directly to the folder, or if they're already uploaded here, I can just highlight and drag and drop them into the appropriate folder. So we'll see those are now stored here, just kind of tucked away into that draft folder so that I can reference them later on if needed. And another thing that I do want to mention is in the task section. And the tasks that you saw were all generated through the automated workflow capabilities. But you also have the ability to add one-off tasks. So if you needed to interject additional steps at any point, you can click Add Task, or maybe you just wanted to add additional alerts post-execution for milestones, deliverables, obligations, to-do list items. You can add those at any time, schedule them to go out to the appropriate users accordingly. And then some other features that I like to mention while I wrap up this page are over here on this left-hand toolbar. You'll see we have this Actions section, and the Actions section is going to appear on nearly every page in the system, but the actions within it will vary based on the page that you're on. So because we're on a contract page, we have a lot of contract-specific actions. But if we were on maybe a reporting page, we would have reporting-specific actions, or searching page, searching-specific actions. So these options will vary, but some popular items that I do like to point out are the ability to link contracts together and almost create a hierarchy of the relationships that are between your contracts. So if you had maybe a master service agreement on top and a statement of work beneath that, an amendment to that, you could easily build out those relationships. Company info is nice because it allows you to view the company profile that you have set up for your counterparty. And on that company profile, you could store things like contact information, phone number, address, whatever the case may be, reference back to it at any time. So you get a lot of good tracking capabilities there, which is also searchable within the system. Beneath that, we have some rating capabilities. So if you wanted to do maybe vendor performance ratings or contract ratings, whatever the case may be, you can add those rating scorecards and then evaluate, do your due diligence, of course. There's legal hold options in case there's ever any dispute or litigation that arises. You can basically put a freeze on this record so nobody deletes data or files during discovery. We did already talk about the one-off emailer, but I will mention that again. That allows you to send emails out of the system to internal or external parties, history for the full audit trail, so lots and lots of features there. If you are already a CobbleStone user, you are probably familiar with all of those and everything that we had just gone through. But if you are not a CobbleStone user, we do offer a free 30-day trial. So if you wanted to test this out, please reach out to one of the account managers or send a question in the Q&A portion of this session, and we can provide you with all of the information to evaluate the software accordingly. And what I wanted to wrap up the last few minutes that we have here before we get into Q&A with is searching and reporting. So now that the contracts are in the system, how do we find them? How do we navigate to them? So we have a couple of options. Of course, we have our quick search on the upper menu. This is a wildcard search, most similar to your Google search, and it's going to search through all of your fields and your indexed files. So it's pretty comprehensive. Maybe I'm looking for all contracts with our corporate location or within a certain department or with a certain counterparty or contract type. I can easily come up here and say, maybe I'm looking for all of our consulting agreements. I can type consulting, hit enter, and that's going to bring back everything in my system with the word consulting in it. And that is 10 results here. And you'll see that it gives me a good bit of information. I can see the contract title, effective, expiration status. But if I did want to manipulate what I'm seeing here, I could easily click on this columns button to adjust, view additional pieces of information. And what's helpful about that is that all of these columns are filterable. So if you did want to filter on other pieces of information, you can adjust that view. But in this case, maybe I'm only looking for consulting agreements in our legal department. In the department column, I can type legal, use this filter or funnel, click contains, starts with, equal to, and that's going to narrow it down to 4 results. And then I can continue to filter, maybe only ones with status being equal to active, until I find exactly what it is that I am looking for. In this case, I just pulled up that active consulting agreement. If I wanted to open the record and see all of the details, files, workflow, notes associated with it, I can click on that view button. And at any time, I can export my results out to Excel. So that is one of the first options for searching. Again, that's our quick search, most similar to a Google search. But we also have a couple of other options. One is by going to contracts and find search contracts. And this is going to be a field-specific search. So it's going to give me all of my fields, and then I have the ability to search within that specific field. So if I only wanted to see contracts where my counterparty name is equal to, let's say, ABC Corp, I can select ABC Corp, click search, and that brings back those 3 contracts that I have with ABC Corp. I get the column filters, the view button, the exporting capabilities. If needed, I could manipulate the columns that display here. And there's also this view all button. So if you wanted to see everything in the system that you had permission to see, you can click view all. That brings back all the contracts that you are permissioned to, and then you could just use those column filters to narrow that down accordingly. But these are your one-off searches. So if you do find that you are coming in day after day doing the same searches over and over again, that's when I would recommend creating an ad hoc report. And this ad hoc reporting tool is probably the most popular among our clients because it's fairly easy to use. And you get about 40 of these already created with the system. And then you can create as many additional containing whatever searching and filtering criteria that meets your needs. And you'll notice that some of the reports that come out of the box are things that would be pretty useful to a large majority of our clients, like contracts expiring in 30, 60, 90 days, all active contracts. But then, like I said, you can configure an unlimited number of additional reports containing whatever searching and filtering criteria that meets your needs. If you open these up, you have the ability to have different columns, filters, and sort orders on a report-by-report basis, but you'll notice it looks very similar to my search results. So that way, you can still take advantage of additional column filters, the view button, the exporting capabilities. If you were capturing any type of numeric information, you could easily chart these, pin those charts to your homepage. So this is, again, very popular among our clients. Probably the thing that I love the most about this reporting tool is the fact that you can have them emailed out on a recurring basis. So if you need a report in your inbox, or maybe somebody else's inbox who doesn't even access the system on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly basis, you would just schedule that to go out, and essentially the user or the individual would come into the office the morning they're expecting it, and it would be right there waiting for them with results in Excel format. So you don't even have to log in to get that information if you don't want to. And we do have that other style of reporting that I mentioned back at the beginning of the demo when we were talking about the dashboards. And that is our online report designer. So under reports and searches, you'll see that report designer. And you get a variety of online report designer reports out of the box with the system. But we also give you a handful of graphical dashboards created out of the box that are made utilizing that online report designer. So if I flip over back to that yearly analysis to show you, it's going to give me a more graphical view. Again, very popular for any user who's coming in doing analysis, benchmarking. I see a lot of our clients utilize these to build, KPI and cycle time reports. So that's doable too. And that is really what I had intended to go through on kind of this high level overview. As I mentioned, we will open the remaining 15 minutes of the session up for questions and answers. But also, if you do need additional information about anything that we've covered today, or you wanted to schedule follow-up demos to go through anything in more details, please feel free to reach out to CobbleStone. A CobbleStone rep is more than happy to help out in presenting additional features on a specific demo for your organization. And there are a variety of other demos that will take place throughout the virtual conference. So take a look at that agenda. Please sit on all of the other sessions that might meet your needs or that you're interested in learning more about. And like I said, we will then open it up to questions. But thank you so much for attending today's session.